Alright, friends, it's Good Music Fan, the Rabid Cyclist coming at you. I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize for being gone for so long. There were some things that happened that, just you couldn't get around. They don't need to be explained here, but suffice to say, couldn't deal with it. Now I can. You may recall in our last video, we were going to talk about cycling infrastructure. I mean, what that is. From a cyclist point of view, it boils down to pretty much just two things. Where can I park my bike, or what can I lock my bike up to? Or, two, what kind of road am I riding on? Am I riding on a path, a cycle track, a multi-use park pathway, a MUP? So, yeah, we're going to be doing that today. Okay, first off, most of us usually will ride wherever we can. Legally speaking, depending on the laws, you might be able to actually ride on the sidewalk from point A to point B. I do in some stretches of the routes that I actually take a look at, and I will ride on the sidewalks because it's just safer, or the infrastructure, aka the sidewalk, is in better shape than the road. Some places you may not be. There's an area downtown that's defined as a non-biking on the sidewalk zone. For no bikes on the sidewalk zone. I see people violating this all the time, so it doesn't really matter. But if you've ever come to Salt Lake City or you live here, you know that we have a mass transit system called UTA. Well, this company has a area of the downtown described as the free fare zone, where riding anywhere you want in that zone, you don't have to pay for it. Ironically, it looks an awful lot like the area you're not allowed to ride a bike on the sidewalk. The problem with these cycling restrictions like that is sometimes they're difficult to enforce because the police don't know, or they enforce it a little too eagerly. There was at the local bike council meeting. Excuse me for a minute. Sorry about that. At the local bicycle advisory committee meeting, one of the members on this panel, board, whatever you want to call it, brought that up, where he relates a story of people coming from an event and only being on the sidewalk for 10 yards or so, just enough to get off the sidewalk and get on the street, and the police were there arresting them. I mean, not arresting, but handing out a ticket. And yet I've seen people cycle right past bicycle cops, not a problem. So I mean, that sort of thing is more of getting the word out to people, educating them on what is a fine, what isn't. Okay. As far as being able to ride on sidewalks, like I said, I don't really care for it much, just because some sidewalks are really nicely maintained. Others, I've gotten pinch flats in some places because it's just such a pain in the butt to constantly try and adjust your line of travel so you don't get these sharp cracks, and it's just easier to ride on the street. Now, that being said, I do have a picture of a cycle path that we have here, although I'd call it a track. But I'll put that up here. Now, as you may have noticed, this picture here is actually shot. There's two of them, one east, one west. This lane is actually on 9th South. I think it's between 2nd West and 4th West, I think. I'm not too sure, but you may notice that that lane, that whole stretch of road, is actually quite wide. And the bicycle path that's on there is actually duplicated on the other side of the street. You'll be able to see that. But if you notice here in this second photo that when you look back towards the I-15 overpass area, it narrows down to just 2 lanes. That's it. And one of the lanes that a cyclist could use theoretically has one of those idiotic serpentine where you've got to turn here, turn here, turn here, and then you can go on about your business. Yeah, I don't like that. There's enough room in that design. All they have to do is just widen it out. Now, the railroads are going to get cranky about it, oh bloody well for them. So they've got to slow down an extra few yards before they get to the intersection. Half the time they don't anyway. They ride at a certain speed, and that's basically all we can do about it. But I want you to notice that this cycle lane has two buffer zones on it. Now these are going to be important for the next picture I'm going to show you, which is, I believe, what they're hoping to implement for the master plan for the city, how to incorporate bikes, pedestrians, and traffic. And you may notice in this video, or in this picture that I'm going to put up here right now, that you see where the cyclist is. You also see where the car is, where cars, and then there's a buffered zone where people can stand to be picked up or dropped off from cars. Then here's the cyclist, here's the pedestrian. Notice that the pedestrian is actually up on a curb. Over in Denmark, a lot of the times, the cycle track path, however you want to put it, is the same height as the sidewalk. Sometimes it's actually higher than the sidewalk, but I believe those ones are more of the result of people not wanting to have their driveways ripped up. We have that sort of thing here in America too. It's no big deal. But from a safety standpoint, even having that little bit of curb there to slow a car down before it comes at you has got to be infinitely safer, folks, than just a painted buffer. Even if they've got those delineators that look like, I think they call them candlesticks. I'm pretty sure you've seen them. They're usually orange. Sometimes they're white. They're sitting into the ground. And if they get hit, they can bend down and come back up. Well, sometimes those things don't give a rider enough warning. This would, at least, you'd hear the car go thud. Probably the chassis would scrape. And all right. Here's the next photograph I'm going to show you. Sorry about that. You're going to see the overpass on North Temple from about 6th West and to where it changes from a bike path to a bike lane. The difference being, I was told by a cop who I'm pretty sure was trying to say the word lane instead of path, but, hey, I'm just going to use it. You notice that as it comes down off the hill, it's a painted green line. It starts just before you get to the bottom, cuts across the tracks at a right angle, and then comes back to where you see the photograph start. The next photograph you're going to see is actually from that same position, just turned 180 degrees so you can see where the bike lane is. I've ridden this lane myself numerous times. I enjoy it. People are watching. I've never had anybody honk at me yet or get too close. I mean, sometimes the occasional urban assault vehicle, motorhome bus thing will get really close, but for the most part, it's okay. If that happens to be the case, right along that area, they've also got some fairly nice sidewalks. They did a lot of renovation on the North Temple corridor when they were putting in the TRAX extension. TRAX is a light rail commuter thing that we have here now. That line is called the Green Line, and it goes from the West Valley City Hub or City Center, whatever, out to the airport. Then they have a red line that goes from Daybreak all the way up to the University of Utah Primary Children's Medical Center. And then the blue line, which basically just goes from the central station where the Amtrak buses, both UTA and Greyhound, meet, all the way down to I want to 105th and Sandy or something like that. I mean, it goes a fairly distance. That was the original line. The red line came up a few years after that, and it actually stopped at the football field sports venue or whatever that's up there. And then after the Olympics came through, they finished it off and took it on up to the university, which I know a great many people use that to get to their doctor's appointments because it's simple. You get off the train right there, walk across the street, take an elevator up to the Sky Bridge, over, you're in the hospital. You don't have to deal with, walking along a sidewalk that is really inadequate. And I believe they've taken it out just because no one was using it, so why maintain it? That I can understand. But yeah, the green line extension that goes out to the airport, I've had a chance to ride it. It goes through some fairly decent country. I mean, yeah, it's kind of out there. They can't build nothing or do anything with it. Security reasons. If they had grass too tall, some stupid terrorist could probably sit out there with a handheld launcher and blow an aircraft out of the water. And if someone's going to get butthurt over that last comment, bite me. But yeah, I've had a chance to ride the North Temple line all the way out to the airport and back. It's a decent ride. The part of the trail that actually ends up being on the airport property, if you need to ride it before a certain time, there has to be a background check and a pass. I'm kind of personally against that. I mean, I'm sorry. I know most airports are semi-private, or private, depending on what they are, but that's only the land they occupy. The trail actually goes out and around and is in some parts on its own turf, from what I can tell. Isn't that not public property? Why should you have to get a permit and endure a background check and all that crap for something like this? But that's an argument for another day. That whole trail section that I've just described to you is decent. It's a lot better than what we had about 5-6 years ago. There was nothing there. In my opinion, at least the part of North Temple that feeds into it could be better arranged, marked, so that if a cyclist was going from downtown, wanted to go out to the airport, pick up his girlfriend, or pick up a friend who's got a bike there and wants to bike back with him, it'd be nicer to have it a little more delineated. But that's how that is. All right, just give me a shout back here in just a second. We'll be right back with you. Have fun. Okay, friends, sorry about that. Getting back to the discussion on cycling infrastructure, we left off with discussion about the North Temple bike trail lane path as it leaves North Temple and starts out into, I think it's a commercial or light industrial area, and then goes to the airport. I want to make a clarification here. Sorry about this, but there is a background check required if you need access to the trail prior to, I believe it's 7 in the morning during the summer months, or 5 in the morning during the winter months. That may have been changed. I don't know how this is because, let's face it, I am not going to be cycling out there anymore. Many years ago, when I worked out at a window manufacturing plant out in the International Center, I would bike out there, and because that trail was closed, I just rode the surface streets. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to, but at the time, there was nothing on the fence that said, okay, who do I call to get this information? Another reason why I'm against any sort of background check that requires so you can actually use a, quote, public anything. And so, I keep all my traveling here. The only times I've gone out to the airport here lately have been just to ride the trail, just to have some fun. I mean, that's it. So, now as far as multi-use paths, those are something that I think deserves special consideration for one simple fact, and that, again, everybody can be on it. I've seen folks in those wheelchairs, those mobility aids, whatever you want to call them, use them. I've seen, little old ladies walking their dog. I've seen young moms pushing their jogging with their babies. Whole families, a mom and a dad pedaling bikes, hauling a kid in the trailer and a kid in another trailer. I've seen horses on them. Okay, it makes multi-use. Now, some sections of the Jordan River Trail are not for horses or for those mobility aids. The exact areas are variable depending on where you're at. I know the Salt Lake City area is from, I want to say, 19th North or 2100 North, all the way down to 2100 South. Past that, it becomes someone else's problem. Right around there, there's a couple of spots where you can ride a horse, but they're outside of that area, and you can actually see where the horses ride. Other than that, anyone gets to use it, and I like to see it. My only complaint with them really is that in some spots, and I'll put a picture up here, this bridge that I'm about to show you here is on the Jordan River Trail from 5th North, or on just above 5th North, right over the river. And like 5th North and like maybe 1675 West, almost right on top of Redwood Road. And this bridge has been here as far back as I can remember, and it's always been a pain as a cyclist to get across it. About 4 weeks ago, I took a Saturday afternoon ride. I had to wait for a rather large group of people pushing strollers, little kids on bikes with training wheels, and yeah, it's fine, folks. It's not like I had to get to work or see my daughter go off to college and I wanted to get there before she stepped on the train. But this thing is incredibly narrow. Now I'll show you a couple of pictures. I'll actually post the short video clip. The individual you see in this clip is my son. He's about as tall as I am. He's 6'6". And this was his arms spread out. He can pretty much keep his fingertips on the tops of those handrails as he goes across the bridge. That tells you how narrow this thing is. If a cyclist is not just glued to where his wheel is pointing, one slip, he can be kissing the concrete or even going over the side into the river. I don't like it. I think it should be fixed. But from what I've been told, the current effort in, at least from the Salt Lake City County's perspective, is to get the trail finished. Now, the trail stops at
maybe 12th or 13th West. There's a track station right there across the street from it. You go across the street, eastbound to 10th West, down to 3rd South, back over, and then you can see where the trail continues under, and it goes under the I-15. I think it's I-15 that's right there. It goes under that, and then comes back out and winds its way around. Now, the area in between there is the bit they want to get finished. And, okay, that's fine. I agree it needs to be finished. But, you know, there's some maintenance that could... Some of those bridges that cross the Jordan River Trail, just in the section that Salt Lake City County or Salt Lake County is responsible for, could definitely use some love. There's more than a few bridges. The decking on them is in crap shape. I mean, they take pains to keep the graffiti off. I wouldn't really care so much about graffiti if they just keep the decking from giving my tires splinters. It hasn't really happened a lot, but it's happened enough. I've heard from more than a few cyclists, they said the bridges are in sad shape. From a structural standpoint, they look sound. I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't, look at it and say, nope, that footing's going to cave away. We got to get rid of it. But the bridge in question that I brought up to this committee meeting here many months ago, about there's no room on the east side of the trail. I'll put that picture up to put the bridge to extend it any further. Literally, when the bridge comes on that side of the river, it's hitting the corner of a guy's property. But there's sufficient trail north of that guy's property that they could put in another bridge just like that one, just as narrow if they really wanted to, and get away with it. And, you got one side for eastbound, one side for westbound. Simple, done, saved. But apparently the goal is to get the connector finished and then talk about it, and then discuss it. Now, in my opinion, there's been too much discussion going on about that. It's taken ages just to get... apparently, the connector that they're trying to finish crosses two different rail lines. Now, one is a very seldom used one, and I believe they've successfully negotiated to cross it at grade level, which means just like downtown when you go across a tracks line on a sidewalk or on the crosswalk. Boom, boom, you're across it. The other one does get used more often and will probably have to have some sort of bridge design on it. Now, this bridge design, I have some reservations. I would like, hopefully they come up with it, or show at least a version of what this bridge will be like at the next advisory committee meeting. And if they can, I'll try and get a copy of it and I'll post it here. But I want to see this thing easy enough for some of the elderly that I know are out there in riding that really don't like hills. It's easy enough for them to get up. Also easy enough for someone towing a trailer. Now, this does not just mean parents with kids in a little trailer behind them, or on one of those trail along bikes. You know the ones I'm talking about, where it's essentially a bicycle, but instead of having front forks, it just clips onto the parent's back seat post. You know what I mean? You've seen them. There are some individuals. I believe she's a Korean lady that gets most of her money by going around collecting cans. Now, she goes around and just goes with a shopping cart to get them. Excuse me. But her husband that I've run into and have talked with a couple of times, he does a bike. He uses the bike and a trailer, sometimes two trailers, to haul these cans and that when they get down, and they apparently get by. But he said his one biggest complaint is there's some parts of the trail where they can't go because the bollards. And those of you who have ridden around here, you know what they are. It's like, here's the entrance to the bridge. Here's this stupid piece of metal sitting right in the way. That metal has its uses, folks, but come on, let's face it. Sometimes they are put in just the most asinine place in the world. Some areas of the Jordan River Trail are just not accessible period, for a trailer because they're not wide enough. I believe it's on 7th South. If you look at Google Earth, take the Jordan River Trail line from like where I said on North Temple and about 13th or 12th West, one of those. Follow it around. You'll see where this trail comes out and makes a very ugly 90-degree right angle turn, and then another 90-degree turn. The problem is the one part of this, the bridge that this road is built from, the pedestrian bit is very narrow. It's about as narrow as that bridge that you just saw. It's not wide enough for a bicycle trailer. I mean, that bridge is not really wide enough. I've seen people do it, but I've also seen people, their trailers will literally bounce around because it's just not wide enough, or more often than not, the cyclist just hasn't bothered to take care of the trailer and it's tracking all over the place. So, but I want to see this bridge built so that someone with a bike trailer, some maybe heavily loaded, could get up and over it, and there's enough room so that another family coming along, or just John Q. Me or a few other people I can mention, have enough room to pass this guy without him having to stop and hug one side of the wall. Now, on this North Temple overpass that you saw, the original version was actually overextended a lot bigger. The 4th West, it used to pass right over it. Now it doesn't. 4th West is actually where it stops, which is, in my opinion, a good thing, because trying to go up and over that, it made that thing really steep, and as a cyclist, you couldn't do it. In fact, I think they actively discourage cyclists from riding the old North Temple overpass. No, they don't. You'll notice in the picture that they've got 2 spots where you can go. You can either be on the road, perfectly legal, and it's actually painted for it, or on the sidewalk. Again, perfectly legal. It's outside of the no riding zone. But, yeah, really, it's just some whines and gripes, folks. I'm out there doing what I can. I encourage you folks, get off your butts, put down the iPad, stop watching for the latest episode of Desperate Housewives or whatever you're into. If you see a problem with something you like to use, take it to the city. Find the relevant, agency that handles it. Make your complaints known. There's nothing going to happen here without you and I and everyone else getting up and saying, hey, we want this fixed. I also want to point out here, this coming on May 10th, we have what is called the Ghost Ride. It's a ride. It starts out as a silent ride for a mile or two in honor of cyclists who fell last year. Now, some of you who live in Salt Lake City, and for those of you who don't live here in Utah or don't live in Salt Lake City, I apologize for this. It was a local piece of news, but last summer we had a problem with one of those. We have those carriage rides where people pay like $40, $50. They get a carriage ride, horse-drawn carriage ride around the downtown area. Apparently, it got so hot this horse fell down and later died. You heard all about it, everything that was going on with it. During that same time frame, a judge who had, I guess, retired or whatever, it was killed in Emigration Canyon or Parley's Canyon, something like that. I'll look it up here in a minute, and I'll actually post it up a different, when I get the actual information. You never heard anything about it. Nowhere. Even on the news, radio news, I didn't hear anything. I had to get this, for lack of whatever, secondhand from Bike Utah, the biking magazine or something. I'll post or Cycling Utah. That's it. Sorry, I learned about it that way. It assaults me. It offends me that as cyclists we get marginalized. Yet if we stand up for our rights, oh, he's the cyclist person who never thinks himself above everyone. I don't think I'm above anybody else. I'm just like you in the back corner. I want cyclists to be treated fairly, but it also means we've got to act in a responsible way. Don't blow through a stoplight. Signal your intentions. Stick your arm out. Okay, left, right. Slow down, stop. Do that. Ride with the approved safety gear. Now, fortunately, Utah doesn't have a cycling helmet law, thank God. For me, I'd be completely screwed. There's no helmets out there that are within reach of my price range that I can afford. There is 2 models that I'm hoping come out.
I'll put links in the bottom section for you, and you can check them out for yourself. They are really cool. The one is actually made out of cardboard. It has the standard, I guess, plastic epoxy top, but it's transparent so you can see that. And unlike most helmets, where once you get into an accident, throw the helmet away, this thing can be used a couple of times before you throw it away. Folks, I know there's going to be people out there that are going to be arguing, well, how much is your life worth? There's how much my life's worth versus, let's see, being able to ride without having a migraine headache and falling down holding your head because it hurts so bad. The helmet I've got, I'll put a link to the company it is. This particular design and model is the biggest I could find. It broke within a couple of days of me riding it. I still use it from time to time, but it grips too tightly here and on the back of the head. It hurts. I know there are helmets out there that work for me. And for those of you who have big heads or had oddly shaped ones, you'll know what I talk about. You want to go riding where they have a helmet law. It's going to ride helmet. What do I do? Well, fortunately here I don't have that problem, but for those of you who do have this issue, even if you're not here in the States, you're in another country, my heart goes out to you because it sucks. It's been proven over and over again. Mandatory laws, do they save lives? I've seen data going either way, so I'm going to leave that up to you to figure out which is the true statement. Do they impact cycling? Yes, it will drop cycling numbers down. Not a significant amount, or put it this way, not a relevant amount, but it will drop it some. There are going to be some people who, no matter what, are just going to say F you to the helmet laws. I kind of applaud that. But anyway, one little bit here. With this Ghost Ride coming up, folks, if you can make it, I'll put up the link. Go up. Folks, just do it. We lost so many cyclists last year. It was sad. And I'm sure other states probably have similar, if not, and you're in, let's just say you're in Wisconsin and you see this piece, write to these guys, ask them how they started up. Maybe you want to set up something in your own state. I know I do. Time commitments and work requirements being what they are, I will not be able to attend this year's Ghost Ride as much as I want to. Attend Ghost Ride, pay rent. Ghost Ride, pay rent. Well, sorry folks, I got to pay my rent. But I will do everything I can to try and get out of work that early that day, so maybe I can be there at the finish line and, cheer them as they come across. It's just a good thing, folks. All right. Okay, with that being said, this is good news for the rabid cyclist. So, look over your left shoulder. Mind yourself on the road. God is blessed. Thanks.